So anyway, so we know about the Russian-Ukraine deal. We'll get into that in a minute. So kind of first want to see what the current state of Biden is like. And like I said, all the links are going to be in the description as always. Check it out. Read behind me. Make sure you see what I see. If you see something different, awesome. If you feel like I'm doing a terrible job, hey, throw it in the comments. Let a brother know. This is from CNN. It says Biden moves closer toward announcing Supreme Court nominee. Several signals suggest President Joe Biden is moving closer to picking someone to replace Justice Stephen Breyer on the Supreme Court as White House quickly approaches its self-imposed deadline to announce a nominee before the end of the month. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki told reporters on Wednesday there was no circumstance in which Biden would hold his announcement of a Supreme Court nominee after February, suggesting the ongoing crisis in Ukraine hasn't derailed their goal. Multiple sources have told CNN Biden that has already met. Even the pros messed up. So y'all don't be tripping when I do. That ain't good grammar right there. I said that ain't. Okay, so blah, 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 blah. He's already met with 3 potential Supreme Court nominees, each of whom could become the first black woman nominated to the bench. The women under consideration are these people here. All right, and you can continue to go on and read there. Again, we've said this before, and this has come up. This is true in acting. This is true in politics. It's true in whatever. A lot of times we're trying to hit those first woman for this, first black woman for this, the first trans person for this, the first gay person for this, like Pete Buttigieg. I think that's great that he's in the cabinet, but I don't think he's doing anything in the cabinet. In fact, I don't think he was brought into the cabinet to do anything except for to hit that first openly gay cabinet member of that department, whatever. And it's just to check a box. I don't think he's really doing much of anything, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say that our roads can prove that that's not our failing infrastructure. How about that? Can prove that he's not really doing a whole lot. Again, you can continue reading this. I just hate the idea that we're going to put someone on the Supreme Court because of the color of their skin. That almost seems racist to me when you think about what racism is. Or sexism, that it's going to be a female. But I do understand at the same time, like, hey, we want representation. We want to hear a different perspective, just like you listening to me instead of CNN or whoever. So I get that too. The fear of it, though, is that we're selecting someone who doesn't deserve that role, someone who's not qualified for that role, much like Kamala Harris isn't qualified to be the vice president. Sorry if you love her. I can't stand that woman. She shouldn't be there, but she's there because she checked all the right boxes. That said, I hope, and I pray we don't do that with the Supreme Court, because it is a significantly longer term that is served there. If it is a woman of color, a black woman or whatever, I hope it's someone who can get the job done. Now, of course, if Biden picks her, she's going to be more liberal or progressive or whatever, left leaning. And that's fine, because it has a little left, a little right. And ultimately, hopefully it balances out, because a lot of these folks have voted surprisingly to lean different ways because of how they interpret the Constitution. And ultimately, that's what we're going for, is people to actually interpret based off of the Constitution what is legal, what isn't, and so on and so forth. So I'm just hoping he picks somebody who's right for the job. I don't care the color of skin or what they got between their legs at all. I don't care who they want to hook up with, if they're gay, transgender, whatever. The point is, if they're right for the job, let's do it. If not, then they don't need to be there, no matter how many boxes they check. Moving on to another story. From USA Today, DOJ ending Trump era China initiative, national security program fueled Asian intolerance biases. So I brought this up for a couple of reasons. Just, it's something else that the Biden admin is doing. It has to do with Trump, of course. We're going to see later on in the show, when we do talk about Ukraine and Russia, kind of how they're undoing some things that Trump did. They probably should be leaving alone, or should have left alone. I'm not the absolute biggest Trump supporter, but it's really interesting to see them undoing a lot of what Trump did, and those specific things coming back and biting them in the butt. And unfortunately, they're coming back and biting us in the butt as well. But we'll go ahead and read this just to see what it's about. It says the Justice Department is ending a Trump-era national security program known as the China Initiative, saying the effort aimed at countering the persistent economic espionage threat fostered anti-Asian bias and discouraged U.S. efforts to attract top scientists for critical research across business and academia. Assistant Attorney General Matthew Olson, Chief of Justice's National Security Division, announced a move Wednesday, acknowledging long-standing concerns voiced by civil rights advocates that the program's identity had fueled a narrative of intolerance and bias. To many, the narrative suggests that the Justice Department treats people from China or Chinese descent differently, Olson said. The rise in anti-Asian hate crime and hate incidents only heightens these concerns. And it goes on more, and it talks about someone who could be looking into different things for Trump, and she's Asian and stuff. You know, that's great. And you know, when Trump put like the travel bans out there, they called him racist and xenophobic and all kinds of stuff at the beginning of the coronavirus before we were all freaking out. And then Biden didn't, nobody said anything. And then in hindsight, they're thinking, okay, well, maybe Trump did the right thing, but they won't give him the credit for it. Again, not the biggest Trump fan, but I can acknowledge right from wrong. Okay. I can acknowledge hypocrisy. So I don't know that much about this particular program, to be 100% transparent with you. It does talk a little bit more about it, but of course it does have its own slant on it. And kind of doing a little search, I probably could have done more searching and found more about it. But in the searching I did, I didn't really find anything that stood out to me as definitive. But I would imagine that this was put in place intentionally to serve a specific purpose, and it was probably not meant to be a long-term thing anyway, and was probably for a, like I said, for a specific purpose, especially knowing now, I think YouTube won't take me down for this, that, you know, it's significantly likely that COVID-19 came from the lab in Wuhan. I know it was a conspiracy theory at first, but now all roads are kind of leading that way. And that is, of course, in China, as Trump would say. And they gave him a hard time for that, too. So, you know, not trusting Chinese doctors and scientists may have made sense at one time. And maybe we're getting away from that. But anyways, this is just an example of something they're overturning. Again, kind of tuck that away at the back of your mind, because we're going to come back to some more things that they've overturned and things that have changed since Biden's taken office over from Trump. Here's another one from NBC News. Officials considering reinstalling fence around Capitol for State of the Union. The fence is the same barrier that remained around the Capitol for months. Excuse me. After the January 6th riot and during the Justice for J6 rally. Security officials are considering reinstalling a fence around the Capitol building ahead of possible protests that could coincide with President Joe Biden's State of the Union address. Why? You know, they didn't do this for anyone else. Why all of a sudden are they doing this? And I know someone in the comments is going to say, well, they did do it this one time for someone, and that's fine. But these fences are going up a lot. And for an administration and a political party that really is against fences and walls, it's really amazing to see that, number one. Number two, usually authoritarians put up fences to keep the people out. It's amazing to me to see, and we'll get to Canada in a minute, the people rising up and speaking out and protesting. It's interesting that the administrations will listen to some and not others. And one side you have like peaceful protesters doing, I don't know, like the trucker convoy, for example, or, you know, peaceful rallies. They don't want to listen to them. They want to make laws and everything and get rid of them. But you got other parties that are, or groups that are burning down cities, you know, killing folks, robbing stores, completely just destroying towns, taking over towns, turning into occupations. And the administration party supports them, bails them out of jail, does all kinds of stuff. It's amazing to me how that happens, and the open hypocrisy that's there, and how many Americans just go along with it. It just really blows my mind on that. But yeah, dictators usually have the fences up all the time, not an open democracy or a democratic republic, which is what we are. But The temporary inner perimeter fence is part of those ongoing discussions and remains an option. However, at this time, no decision has been made, a Capitol Police spokesperson said, adding that the agency has been working closely with the Secret Service to plan for the State of the Union scheduled for March 1st. I can't wait to hear that. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has approved requests for the deployment of hundreds of National Guard troops to help police with traffic during First Amendment demonstrations expected in the coming days, the agency said Tuesday. And again, when Trump was elected and they had all those demonstrations with people yelling and screaming and whatever, I don't really think they were on high alert there. And they didn't make a big deal out of it there. It's just whatever they can do, I think, to shed certain people of political parties or that voted for certain people in a negative light, they're going to do it. And I yawned a minute ago. Let me explain. I'm a big boy, and I've started taking CrossFit, and I'm just getting started, and it is whooping me. So if I seem a little out of it, a little tired, it is not something I'm used to. Okay, the only gym I'm familiar with is gym from The Office. So this is something new to me. So I apologize for that ahead of time. Well, after the fact, I guess it's already on. But yeah, it's interesting to read this and to see how they react one way or the other, depending on what side of the aisle they fall on. And this is a side note. It does have to do with this, but at the same time, it has nothing to do with this, if that makes sense. But I think most people, when they think about politicians, the job is, at least in this country, we elect someone to represent us, whether it's our senator or congressperson or local, at our local communities, local councils, school boards, whatever. We're electing people to represent our voices, right? In a Democratic Republic, that's what we do. What is infuriating is that that very seldom, once the people get into office, very seldom do they listen to their constituents. Mostly they listen to the people with the money, right? And we talked about this before too. Their backers, the whatever you want to call them, just big money folks, whoever can pad their wallet the most and give them the best opportunities long term. And then they will literally fight tooth and nail for a position in an office that I can't imagine is all that fun to have. As much work as they should be doing, right? For 4 years, 8 years, whatever. But they will fight tooth and nail for that office. And then you got people like, I think Pelosi says she's going to run again. My God, that woman's she's been there since before I was born. Biden has been since before. I mean, so many of them have been in there for so long. They treat it like a job, which I disagree with. It's like a job where they just clock in and clock out, and they sell their soul to the highest bidder. And then every time, because we are stupid and we have short-term memory, every time it's election season, we conveniently forget all the negative and only look at what they've done over the last 6 months to a year, which is when they start lowering prices on gas, by executive order or whatever it is they do, tapping into overage supplies or whatever. When they start, putting out different laws, when they lighten up on mask mandates, when they, start picking up trash twice a week or whatever it is they do to get your vote. You remember that, you vote them in, and then they go back to the same old ways for the next 2, 4, 6, whatever years. And then we have another election and it's the same thing over and over again. Or we just don't go out and vote at all. And these people just stay in office forever. It's got to stop. It's got to go. And I hope that you will join me in going to the polls and getting these people out of office and trying to get some people in there that want to serve the people instead of serve themselves.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this clip from the Morning Mayhem. Remember, this is just a portion of the full show that comes out every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you hadn't already, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the full shows or these tasty little nuggets.